Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about something you use every single day but probably never think about, your wall outlet. Here in Canada, standard household electricity is 120 volts at 60 hertz. If you travel to most of Europe, you'll see 230 volts at 50 hertz instead. At first glance, it doesn't seem like a big difference. A kettle boils water, your phone charges, the lights turn on. So what's the real difference? Even though both systems power everyday appliances, they actually do it in very different ways behind the scenes. You can think of voltage like electrical pressure. Canada runs at lower pressure. Europe runs at higher pressure. That single difference affects how much current flows, how circuits are designed, and even how appliances are built. And that's exactly what we're breaking down today. Why does Canada use 120 volts? Why does Europe use 230 volts? And what does that actually mean for your home? So how did Canada end up with 120 volts? And why didn't we switch to 230 like Europe? To understand that, we have to go back to the late 1800s. Electricity was just starting to enter homes. There was no global standard. Every region was figuring it out as they went. In North America, early electrical systems were heavily influenced by pioneers like Thomas Edison. His early direct current systems operated at around 110 volts. That number wasn't random. It was high enough to power lighting effectively, but low enough to reduce the risk of it. Severe electric shock compared to higher voltages. When alternating current became widespread, the infrastructure in the United States was already built around that voltage range. Canada, being closely connected to the US economically and technically, followed the same path. Manufacturing, grid expansion, appliance design, everything developed in alignment across the border. Here's the key point. Once an entire country builds its electrical infrastructure around a specific standard, changing it isn't like updating your phone. It's more like replacing every artery in a living body. Panels, breakers, transformers, wiring, household appliances, industrial equipment. Almost everything would need to be redesigned. In Europe, electrification expanded a bit later in many regions. Engineers moved toward higher voltage distribution around 220 to 240 volts. Higher voltage means lower current for the same amount of power. Lower current means less energy lost as heat in transmission lines. For dense cities and long transmission distances, that made practical sense. By the time electrification was fully established, both systems were deeply rooted. Europe standardized at 230 volts and 50 hertz. North America remained at 120 volts and 60 hertz. There's also something many Canadians don't realize: we actually use both voltages at home. Residential houses receive split-phase power. Regular outlets are 120 volts, but large appliances like electric stoves and dryers use 240 volts. So higher voltage already exists in your home. It's just used where it's needed. So why didn't we fully switch to 230 volts? The biggest reason is cost. The financial and logistical impact would be enormous. Every device designed specifically for 120 volts would need to be replaced, or modified utilities would have to reconfigure distribution systems. It would be a nationwide engineering overhaul with very little practical benefit for everyday users. There's also compatibility. Canada and the United States share an integrated electrical equipment market. Appliances, power tools, industrial systems, they're all built around the same standard. Changing voltage would disrupt that entire ecosystem. So it's not really about which system is better. Each one developed based on its inner SOM steps, own historical, geographic, and economic conditions. And once those decisions scale to millions of homes, they become permanent. Today, when you plug something into a wall outlet in Canada, you're not just using electricity, you're connecting to over a century of engineering history.